Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar on the subject of digital traceability for the food and beverage industry. My name is Vanessa Grondin, and I'm leading the food and beverage industry at OPTEL. I'm a food engineer with 10 years experience in the food and manufacturing industry. I'll be sharing this webinar time with Liz Surt, Director of Retail Grocery Industry at GS1 US. OPTEL is a longtime member of GS1 Global. Actually, we use the GS1 standards in our product development. We are also keeping up with trends by proactively participating in various GS1 working groups that develop standards. So for example, we are in the working groups on the blockchain, on the digital link, and also in the retail grocery one. So I'll let Liz introduce herself. Go ahead, Liz.
Hey, sorry, my name's Liz Sertle. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at GS1 US. I'm very excited to be here this morning and give you an overview of GS1.
Thank you. So here is the agenda for our time today. We'll start with a few words on who is OPTEL, then talk about why digital traceability is such a trendy topic. After, we'll go through a real use case and finish with why GS1 standards are essential for an effective digital traceability. So OPTEL at a glance. OPTEL is a global leader in track and trace solutions. We are a leader in product-based digital traceability solutions, which is the topic that we'll be discussing today. We are 800 employees worldwide, founded 30 years ago this year. Very proud of that. We have offices in Canada, US, Brazil, Ireland, and India, which are also production facilities. And we are covering multiple industries. So as I said, I'm covering the food and beverage industry, but we're also in life sciences, such as pharmaceuticals, medical device, healthcare, and also raw materials. So now that we've talked about who is OPTEL, we're going to talk about what do we do. So we trace physical products within the supply chain from farm to consumer. In the food and beverage industry, we connect 300,000 producers to 6 billion products to 15 million consumers worldwide. So how do we do that? So to provide a tangible example of what is digital traceability, we're going to use the case of romaine lettuce, the process of romaine lettuce. So the first step is to capture data across the supply chain. This can be done by capturing data within various IoT devices, within an ERP system, within existing IT solutions, or within our own IT platforms. Once we've gathered that data, we can connect the dots of the physical products and their transactions within the supply chain. So the goal here is really to be able to know in real time where your product is coming from. Now that we've structured that data of how physical products are moving along the supply chain, the next step is to leverage that data for value-added analytics. So here we can start talking about AI and machine learning to solve tangible business problems, this is like later in the maturity curve of an organization. So for example, as we're gathering various information from the farm, like the conditions in which the products were harvested, we can start predicting the shelf life of products in a more accurate manner. And this information can help make business decisions on sales strategies, for example. So this is just one example that one of our customers was interested in, and that can provide more insight on the value-added analytics. Okay, so now let's discuss why digital traceability is such a trendy subject. Here is a modern supply chain. Interactions between various stakeholders is increasingly complex. Raw materials come from all over the world. Part of manufacturing is done in-house. Part of it is outsourced. After that, products can pass through multiple distributors before ending up in a consumer's hand. Hence, the logistic puzzle is increasingly complex. In the digital era, the expectations from consumers and various stakeholders is that the requested information be available as quickly as doing a Google search. So this increases pressure towards the adoption of digital traceability. Here we see various drivers of digital traceability as a solution. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of them because I could talk just an hour on this slide. In regards to food safety and recalls, current issues that we see in the industry is that processes are still paper-based and data is stored in silos. In increasingly complex supply chain in practice, it's time-consuming to be able to effectively trace back quickly the origin of ingredients and products. So digital traceability is a solution to this problem. Another one, food fraud. Food fraud is a growing $30+ billion industry. Unfortunately, it's a growing industry. So how can you know that the ingredients that you're purchasing are really what you're expecting? So for example, organic carrots that you bought last week, how can you know that they were really from an organic farm? Sure, there's a certified logo, but how can you be sure that the product wasn't diluted or substituted? So it's a difficult question, and certifications are part of the solutions, but organizations are looking to have a more real-time information. So having the real-time digital traceability on the origin of your sourcing provides that assurance that the product is not fraudulent. So here we're going to play a little game and create an interaction with the audience. We're going to ask the question, first question, and we invite you to answer on the directly on the screen. The question, is digital traceability an investment priority for your organization in the next 12 to 24 months? So we'll share the information with you, the outcome of these different questions later in the webinar. So we're going to wait 2-3 seconds for everyone to answer. So the result of the first question. So 92% of the respondents answered yes. It is a priority of an investment in the next 12 to 24 months. So that's great. Thanks for answering that. Also, a growing trend is consumers demanding more transparency on the food that they buy. So this is a trend that was not around 10 to 15 years ago, and obviously digital traceability is instrumental in this. Lastly, another driver is market competition. So brands are in the race to maintain and win new market shares. Being more competitive also passes by having a leaner supply chain and lower operational cost. So digital traceability is the backbone on which cost reduction products can be done. Here is one slide that I wanted to share with you from a survey done by DNV GL that I was fortunate to meet at the annual GFSI meeting in February. So this survey was done to almost 2,000 GFSI members and food safety executives. The goal of the survey was to understand which enabling technology would gain the most traction as a way to improve food safety. What is interesting is that in 2018, the level of adoption was fairly low. So less than 10% of respondents have used new technologies. Here, we're going to ask a second question. So the second question, do you believe blockchain will transform the food traceability landscape? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. So do you believe blockchain will transform the food traceability landscape? That's a good question. Okay, so our team is very, very fast. Already we have the results. So people that answered yes, 78%. People that answered no, 22%. So we see a trend, a perception that blockchain will transform the food traceability landscape, which is interesting. Thank you for answering that. So as we see, the intention of adoption in the next 3 years is fairly high. In the next 5 years, we can expect half of organizations to have adopted new technologies. This is it's very interesting, and we're gonna move ahead with another question. Is your organization looking to invest in artificial intelligence to solve supply chain issues in the next 12 to 24 months? Okay, well, this is interesting. So the results are interesting. people that answered yes, 42%. People that are not sure or did not respond, 42%. So a little less enthusiasm here. Maybe well, maybe not enthusiasm, but a little a different perspective. Okay, so thank you for playing the game of answering these questions. So as we're moving along, so OPTEL is a technology company, and therefore we use enabling technologies to achieve this end-to-end traceability. So depending on business context, we select the enabling technologies that meet the business need. So now we're going to take these concepts and apply them to real life example. This is a project that is fairly interesting, and it talks about how digital traceability was a way to solve the food safety problem and increase supply chain competitivity. So this is a project that we did in Ghana, and we call this use case the EU lift trade embargo after using a geotraceability solution. So Ghana grows about 90,000 tons of fruits and vegetables that are exported to the EU annually. From 2012 to 2015, there was an increasing number of leafy greens that were intercepted at the EU border due to the presence of harmful organisms. In this case, it was insects. In 2015, the EU decided to prohibit the introduction of 5 leafy greens, and therefore the Ghana government needed to find solutions to improve the food safety of products and also regain the trust of the European Commission for trade purposes, obviously. So here we're showing you one of our platforms, and in this case, it was the geotraceability platform that we use for this project. Here is the different farms on a given plot of land. For each farm, we map up the lot of land and characterize it. So for example, for a given lot, we would be interested in mapping the type of leafy green, cultivar, type of irrigation, type of fungicide, occurrence of a given insect, the number of people living on the farm, etc., and the list goes on. We can also communicate to farmers via SMS. So here, the various stakeholders could communicate to farmers to indicate if ongoing initiatives were working. Here we see a very cool map of the progression of an attribute through time. So in this project, we were looking at the occurrence of a number of insects and if the corrective actions put in place by the Ghana government were working or not. So the visualizing tool was great for the EU to see on their own the results of the corrective actions. And so we've characterized the plot of land. We know what's going on. But what's mostly interesting is to see the physical traceability of products as they're transiting from Ghana to the EU. So the EU could validate the provenance of a lot of leafy greens being exported from a farm or a local cooperative to the EU. Project results. So good news. The EU lifted the ban on Ghana vegetables January 2018. Also, other results of the other outcomes of the project. So the exporting of geotraceability vegetables can open new markets and trigger higher prices, which was the case. There was a generation of higher tax revenue for the country and profit for the exporter. So better commerce, higher quality. And obviously, the solution facilitated compliance, auditing, supplier improvement, and food safety. So this was a really cool project that we did. Now I want to share with you how we can leverage digital traceability to enhance customer experience. So the communication tool used here is a chatbot via Messenger. So we're going to embark on a customer journey of a chocolate bar. When we talk about digital traceability, we are linking the traceability information to a consumer good product via a 2D barcode in this case. So here you see the chocolate bar, and the information that you saw of traceability is linked to this product. So this is variable field 2D barcode. And so here we can imagine a bunch of variations of what we're showing you, but this is basically the consumer journey of traceability. So here you have the information of a product. So have more information on, different attributes of the product, ingredients, sourcing of ingredients. And where it gets interesting is, so if we're looking at the sustainability info, or basically the traceability info, so we can have more information on where the product came from. And these farmers that you're seeing, these are farmers that were in the geotraceability platform. So you can see kind of the link of how we create that dynamic real-time traceability. And here you can have, some information of farmers that really wanted to provide that information to the end consumer. And something funky that we can also do is even integrate that SMS texting for brand digital brand experience. Great. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the importance of GS1 standards for digital traceability. Now to you, Liz.
Thanks, Vanessa, so much. So much of what Vanessa talked about really does fit so well into GS1 and what we do with standards. So first, for any of those of you who are on our work groups, because we are neutral and non-for-profit, we go through antitrust. So real quick, GS1 US is committed to complying fully with antitrust laws, which basically means that we ask and expect folks to refrain from discussing prices, margins, discounts, price changes, and anything else that are competitively sensitive. If anything in this discussion begins to broach those topics, please let me know and we will get legal involved. So with that being said, I just wanted to thank OPTEL for the opportunity to talk to you all today and share the importance of standards. It's so great to have a partner that understands the importance of standards and is willing to talk about it, adopt it, etc. So today I'm going to spend a few minutes reviewing at a very high level who and what GS1 is, what's the problem we're trying to solve, ensuring that we have the right foundation to implement traceability, and how to find additional information if you all have more questions. So GS1 is a company that work in various industries. Similar to OPTEL, we have more than just food and retail grocery. We have healthcare and apparel general merchandise. But what we're talking about today within food does apply to other verticals. So we work with unique identification of products, locations, asset, etc. And we all interact every day with GS1 standards. So as you pick up the soda that may be on your desk, the bottle of water, there's a UPC barcode that is scanned at point of sale in the retail establishments that you go to. That's a GS1 standard. So now if somebody asks you if you're familiar with it, you are. So globally, there are 1.5 million companies that use these standards, and more than 5 billion barcodes are scanned every day. That's a lot. More than 25 million products are registered by brand owners and are being exchanged in the global data synchronization network. I won't go very deep into that today, but more just broach on GDSN. So as Vanessa was saying, consumers are demanding more and more information, which means we need to really be able to implement supply chain traceability and enable our business processes to be more efficient. I mean, business is changing, it's going much more quickly, and the business of food then is changing with it. So the utilization of GS1 standards to facilitate that seamless flow of information and speaking the same language is very, very important. And how we do that is working with the industry. with all different aspects of the industry so that we're speaking the same language and understanding the problem that we're trying to solve. So what is that problem today? Business is changing fast. Margins are thin and getting thinner, and competition is really, really fierce. And what Vanessa referred to earlier with consumers more quickly wanting that information, like you're Googling anything, they want to know that information quickly. Like the bot was telling people where that particular piece of produce was farmed. That's what we need, and that's what they are demanding. They want to know potentially what animal birthed that food. And so we need to be speaking the same language to be able to do that. And Vanessa also referred to romaine. So when we think of romaine or spinach, we also can kind of hand in hand think about regulatory compliance. So the government in the U.S. is involved in the Food and Drug Safety Modernization Act, and that is them is sharing how they feel that the system should be safe and implementing the standards so that we're speaking the same language and getting in front of some of these regulations is what we're all together trying to do. So instead of being reactive, we would like to be proactive and using these standards as one of the ways that we can do that. So right now with GS1 US, there's two initiatives in the food industry. So one is food service and one is retail grocery. And more these are beginning to overlap, and the use of GS1 standards is less, it's more gray. We're seeing more less vertical and more horizontal implementation. So this is the formal way that we get industries together. So by talking together, we're building good practices to exchange accurate product information more quickly and improving efficiencies. And then we need to have the right foundation to do that. So we have, in a food situation, the grower or manufacturer of that, the distributions, the wholesaler, and the food service operator or the grocery store. And all of these different roles within the supply chain will have different but also overlapping benefits of implementing traceability standards. So things like rapid recall, all very important to all three of those roles. The manufacturer being able to very quickly get that information to the consumer's hands of that product. So one of the things that we have done together as an industry is name what is happening. So it's putting a name on the supply chain activities. Product transformation is like a product being made, being born. Then it's transported, and then it's depleted. So is it sold? Is it thrown away? And then the key data elements describe that critical tracking event. So it answers the what, the where, the when, the who, and the why. So these key terms are enabling things like blockchain. So when you answered 78% that you feel that blockchain will transform food traceability landscape in the very near future, you need to ensure that you're all speaking the same language so that anyone within the supply chain can speak it with you. And so when we talk about establishing the right foundation, this is something that's used in a lot of different analogies, but we talk about the foundation as unique identification of companies, of products, of locations, of assets, capturing that information within barcodes, within RFID, and then most importantly is sharing that information in a technology tomorrow like blockchain, or in the longer future, something else that we may not even have thought of yet, but let's get the right foundation together, which in GS1 languages is the company prefix. So when you look at a barcode, it's that first few numbers is the company prefix, and that information is like a base number. for the GTIN, the GLN, and asset identification, which we'll get into next. So very first is the GTIN, Global Trade Item Number, which identifies the product. I won't go into all of this stuff. If you need a GTIN assigned, we can help you do that. You don't need to know how to do that. We are the experts at that. But basically, it's identifying a trade item. And then, very importantly, and this is something that more and more companies and more roles within the supply chain are needing to do, is identify the location. Because you can't track a supply chain, you can't have full traceability without knowing where that traceability is. So there's 3 types of GLNs, of locations: a legal entity, which is like a brand owner; a functional entity, which could be payroll, accounts receivable; and then the actual physical location, a warehouse, a store, a farm. These are very important pieces of that puzzle, of that map that Vanessa was talking about earlier. You need to know where these things are happening. These locations can be used within GDSN, EDI, so just for static information within the advanced ship notice. And it's also very, very important when we're talking about blockchain. So why use the GLN? Well, and also make sure that you have excellent data quality, is to ensure that when we have a common language, but 2, the examples on the screen right now could be miskeys, could be different ways of spelling the same thing within your own organization, different numbering systems within your organizations or your trading partners. So imagine how great it would be if you could have one identification of that location so that everybody is speaking the same language and eliminating potential confusion. So you have your products, you have your location, now the cases. So GS1 128 barcodes have the ability to have a lot of different information embedded in them. So the milestones on the screen are just a six-step process in getting GS1 128 barcodes applied to your cases. We can help you with that, and it's really, really straightforward. But look at that bottom, number 6. They help enable capturing that information for the key data elements and the key critical tracking events. It all comes down to capturing those elements and being able to share them. So I won't go into this in very much detail at all. What I wanted this to show is that there's a list of application identifiers of which you can choose from to what information you'd like to share about your case. In this case, we have the production date of that product and the batch lot number, which is very important when we talk about visibility and traceability. And an example of a 128 barcode on a label, you still have that human readable information for when it's arriving for folks to be able to look at. But when you scan that barcode, all of that information is captured into your systems and then potentially can be shared if needed. And communicating with trading partners via EDI versus GDSN versus blockchain versus what we don't even know what's coming down in the next few years. Making sure you have that information that you've captured and that you can share. And finally, because this is super, super high level, GS1 US on the website has information on our web pages, white papers that we've done, guidelines, which are super, super in the weeds if that's what you need, or super high level, like a webinar, an on-demand webinar. And lastly, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me for anything that you may need. Vanessa, I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Liz. That was great. Okay, so we are at the end of our of the first presentation, and now it will be question time. So to ask your questions, you can enter the questions in the chat box as opposed to chat bot. And so we'll be looking forward to answering your questions. Me and Liz are available to provide more information or insights on our various experiences. Oh, okay. First question coming in. So the question. Okay. It seems like a lot of data elements need to be shared for traceability to be effective. How do I train my team to do this well? I'll start with an answer, and then I'll let Liz share some insights. So, as we are implementing a traceability solution for a given, a customer or business problem, we obviously there's an onboarding guide and some training done on the system. But if we're talking about the different data elements, so this could get a little bit confusing or complex in terms of standards. So I'll let Liz answer maybe what GS1 has in terms of support.
Sure. So we have education, we have online education that can help. I think it's open communication of putting business terms within your own organization into a GS1, potentially standard language, because there is a one-to-one relationship with, if we call it depletion, you're going to call it something else. So trying to get everyone aligned in what that language is and then continuing that conversation. But we do have a lot of tools within GS1 to help with that journey.
Okay, great. Thank you, Liz. Okay, so we do see a few other questions, and what we're going to do is we won't have time to answer all of the questions, but feel free to contact me or Liz for more information on various topics. And it was a pleasure to share this webinar with you today, Liz. And thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar. Have a great day.